Welcome back everyone to Close to Broke. My name is Kieran and today we find ourselves once again at the Gardens Casino. Going to be playing in the 800 game unless there's a bigger game that will be had. Otherwise, I want to let you guys know all the fun things as per usual. That again is, if you guys ever want to play with me on the Splash Squads, the link is at the top of the description. More importantly, on October 15th, which is a Saturday, we're going to be hosting our very first 1-2 meetup game at the Hustler in the West Coast. It's been, I think, a year since I've last done a meetup game here in the West Coast. So yeah, if you guys want to stop by, you guys know drinks will be flowing, the action will be going. So without further ado, let's hop into today's session here at the Gardens Casino. Thank you guys all for watching. Make sure to click that like button down below, and let's hop into an episode of Close to Broke. Today's a pretty quick session, so let's go through this in rapid fire mode. A couple things I'll point out in this very first hand at the end of it, but I'll save you guys that till the end of the hand. In this first hand, we are playing 5-5 here. The 5-5-10 game is full. I'm like 6th on the list at this point. So before we hop into that game, as opposed to just wasting time and doing nothing, let's put together a vlog, right? The action's on me on the button, and I look down at ace-7 offsuit. Not that good of a hand here, but isolating seems okay with any ace against what I perceive is the OMC of the table. He ends up making the call, and we're going off to a flop that is pretty bad as it comes queen, jack, 10, all hearts. At this point in the hand, I think this is a pretty mandatory just give up by this point. But, of course, I never take my own advice, and I decide to c-bet here for $25, and our opponent snap calls. Well, but the action ends up coming with a 6 of spades on the turn. Again, our opponent checks, and at this point, again, look, we've already messed up pre-flop. We've messed up on the flop. There's no way we can make this worse. You can, actually, by betting $45. Our opponent pretty quickly makes a call once again, and we're going off to a river card that comes as 7 of spades. Okay, at least now we have showdown value. Our opponent can check to us. Sometimes we beat some kind of random ace-x when he has just a naked ace of hearts here. So this is a pretty awesome check back here. Not going to be good all that often, but again, happy to take the showdown value. When he checks it to me, I don't do any of that, though. I bet $100 for some unbelievable reason. We end up lighting whatever that is, $200 on fire, it feels like, immediately. Our opponent makes the call pretty quickly with king-queen offsuit, so he played it perfectly, surprisingly, and I played it pretty bad. So I don't run into OMCs too often, playing the 5-10 or the 5-5-10 or 10-20 game. It's definitely not as often as this. It's been a while since somebody has limped pocket aces against me, so I had it coming, I guess. So let's get into this very next hand, where I look down at pocket aces. Well, it's good to pretend like you can play poker really well, especially when you pick up a hand this good. I go ahead and raise here from +1 to $20. Middle position player calls, and a pretty solid player, it seems like, from the cutoff 3-bet to $65. With the action back on me, 4-bet is in order. There's a player in between us, so it's going to allow me to go a little larger with my 4-bet sizing. I make it 210 to go. We're playing somewhere in the neighborhood of, I believe, $900 effective here, $800 effective. Looking to really build a pot at this point. Middle position folds, the cutoff player calls. We're going off to a flop that is pretty reasonable as it comes 2-3-5 rainbow. Not a board that's going to be hitting my range all that often, so I'm going to go ahead and start with a check here. If my opponent overvalues an overpair, which is fairly common at these stakes, he's probably not going to be able to get away from it. Anyways, our opponent ends up checking it back, so it seems like my suspicions have been proven correct. And we're going off to a turn card that comes as 7 of clubs, which brings a full rainbow out there. Of course, there is a straight that exists there, as there was on the flop, but who are we kidding? It's going to be really unlikely in a 4-bet pot for that even to be a hand that exists in this situation. So with the action on me, I bet pretty small here. $140 to go. Looking to attack all random non-believing ace highs. Obviously, you can balance this by doing this with a hand like ace-king here, ace-queen as well sometimes. Anyways, after quite a bit of thinking, my opponent ends up making the fold. He would later on ask me what I had, and I was very honest. Pretty much if anybody asked me what I have, especially if I put the hand in the vlog, I pretty much tell them, especially since I was leaving the game here shortly. And I didn't ask him what he had, but I said that I believed that he had ace-king or ace-queen. Seemed to have nodded his head, so good fold on him. And again, I think we played it pretty decent. In the very next shuffle, I actually end up throwing out the straddle here. Seems like it's a good idea to gamble with winning money as opposed to losing money. It ends up limping like 3 ways. It gets to me on the straddle, looking down, hopefully at a beautiful spot to squeeze. And we look down at the old beautiful hand for blackjack. Something I'd like to double down to the dealer, but the dealer actually notifies me that we are in fact not playing in a 9-handed blackjack table. This is the game of Texas Hold'em, specifically no limit Hold'em. Well, with that information being given to me, I'm going to go ahead and check it through, as 9 deuce offsuit is not very good, but it is pretty good when the flop comes 9-4-4. With us 2 spades out there. We flop top pair here, 2 pairs specifically, and there's a flush draw out there. With the action checked over to me, I think this is a reasonable spot to just throw out a donk lead. Throws out a feeler bet. I can get a value from a ton of inferior holdings, random like pocket 6s, pocket 7s, pocket 8s. I make it $20 to go, only middle position calls, and we're going off to a turn card that comes with 3 of hearts. I think at this point, I'm pretty much playing my hand face up. I'm just going to go ahead and check it here and evaluate. When I check it over to my opponent, he pretty much bets $50. I'm pretty confident in making a pretty snug fold here until I get a live read. I've mentioned this like briefly on and on some kind of episodes, randomly here and there. I'm not Phil Hellmuth. I don't think I possess some kind of magical white magic, but sometimes things happen that I just go with and they work in my favor. And when they don't, I think I've been very genuine and honest. In this case, I catch something out of the corner of my eye that just screams weakness and a little bit of a flush draw-y type vibe, like, oh, I'm kind of strong, you should fold. And when that's the case, I'm going to go with my gut and the live read here. I'm going to go ahead and make the call. We're going off to a river card that comes a king of diamonds. Doesn't change all that much. Of course, if my opponent had like king high spades here, he gets there. But when I check it over to him, there's no decision to be had, as he checks it back pretty quickly. We show our hand, and he does the old double check, double head nod, double discount check, whatever the Aaron Rodgers thing does. We're going to go ahead and take this pot down. I'm really happy we ended up getting that live read, because I was 100% folding on the turn when I checked it to him, and I'm happy I picked that up. Seemed to have made me a couple extra bucks here.
Okay, funny hand to go over. We actually, as you guys I guess we're figuring out, we just moved over from the 5-5 game to the 5-10, or the 5-5-10, or whatever the hell they call it here. Something kind of funny just occurred. We sat down, and you have to play a bomb pot whenever there's a new player. I'm that new player. We sit down in the bomb pot 6 ways. We're gonna go over a hand live because I don't have the video. Anyways, the flop comes like 6, 8, 9, if I'm not mistaken. Rainbow checks through. Turn is a king of clubs, bringing it back to a flush. Checks through. I have queen 10 of clubs, or queen 10 offsuit, excuse me. Checks through again. River comes a 10 of spades. I make a second pair on a 4 straight board. The action checks to me on the cutoff. I bet for value for $30. Folds to the small blind. He tank calls it off, which is interesting, until I realized that, oh my god, there's a 4 to a straight out there. What the hell was I thinking? I messed up. I would have never bet if I saw that, obviously, but the misclick worked because I somehow got called by worse. I don't know what the hell was worse on that board. I can't think of it. Maybe Jack 10 he had, I don't know, but we win the pot somehow, and yeah, hopefully it's a good sign of things to come. I'm going to quickly use the restroom, and then let's hop back into the session.
By this point, we are enjoying ourselves in the 5-5-10 game. Things are going fairly decent, and in the following hand, middle position makes it $25. The button 3 bets to $50. This is a great spot to squeeze against 2 players that have shown the propensity to get out of line with the healthy dosage of a 4 bet. I make it $220 to go with the 4 bet, amassing over 4x what my opponent previously put out. With the action folding back over to my opponent, I'm pretty happy getting it all in here. I'm playing somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1,000 effective. What I wasn't expecting was my opponent to just 5-bet, pretty much click it back to me for $500. Well, as you guys know, I'm not in the business of folding pocket kings pre-flop. This is not the WSOP main event day 1. This is a $800 cap game at the Gardens, 5-5-10. I'm willing to spin it. If you got aces, you got me crushed. If not, we're looking like we're in really good shape. I go ahead and jam all in for $1,055. Our opponent pretty quickly makes a call and shows pocket jacks immediately. Well, after a bit of negotiations, I let my opponent know that I'm open to running it once or twice. I always leave the option up to my opponent. He ends up deciding on twice, and let's see a run out. Put those cards out there for us, Mike. Put those cards out there for us, dealer. Let's hold one time here. Both boards come out favorable for us. And as you guys know, specifically when you win the first one, you're on an automatic free roll and you feel good. All the stress is gone. If a jack comes, so be it. Luckily for us, not this time around. Kings versus jacks for 100 big blinds feels pretty normal and standard. So unlucky for our opponent. At least in this case, our aggressive image has paid us off. I think in this game, specifically with this 800 cap and the bounty game that it is referred to as, and then they got the bomb pot nonsense, one thing you realize is a lot of players just want to see flops. And I think that's why the bounty aspect to it is there. I think that's why they constantly want to do the bomb pot stuff. They just want to see pots. They want to play. They want to just get to a flop. That's all they want to do. They want to get to a flop. And what's going to happen a lot in these games is people just limp a lot. And I think the good players, the great players, are going to be isolating those limps at the proper frequencies, of course. And in this case, this happens to be one of them. Early position limps to $10. I find myself here in early position as well with ace-9 of clubs. I'm going to go ahead and isolate to $50. The third blind cold calls, leaving himself about $225 behind. The early position limper calls, he has somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,500. We're both playing fairly deep here. And we're going off to a flop that comes queen 9-4 with 3 diamonds. Monotone flops are always scary, especially multi-way. Our opponent here from the third blind just open rips it. Massive shout out to this gentleman. I believe his name was Joe. He was a gentleman to play with, and he's actually a fan of the blog. So massive shout out to him. To be quite honest and frank, he was really getting in the mix here. And if the action folds to me, I think I have a pretty easy call here. He had been getting it all in with flush draws and a lot of random combo draws. So I think I'm doing pretty good against that range. I don't think it's always a flop flush or always top pair or a set or 2 pair, etc. But I don't have to worry about it because the other action player to my right actually ends up making the call here. Even with how action both of these players are, it's really tough for my hand to be good by the time the river comes. A diamond probably kills me. Hell, for all I know, one of these guys already has a flush. So, although maybe at hindsight is always clearer, or whatever they say, this time around, I think it's a pretty easy fold, which I end up doing. Our opponents end up showing immediately. The first player, Joe, shows king, queen, so we were behind that. And we actually had the third best hand as our opponent here, the action player, shows king 10 of diamonds for a flop second nut flush. Happy we were able to get out of the way of that hand. The turn and river break out here, nothing changes. But like I said, happy with the outcome, obviously, that I wasn't able to lose any more money. But I think, like I said, no matter how action you are, you got to be a little paying attention to these things. Specifically, the way he said call, I just felt like he was super strong, and I think it was an easy situation for me to get out of. We're now touching the latter half of the session, but we got a really fun hand to go over in this next one. As the cutoff makes it $35 to go, the small blind and the big blind make the call. I find myself in the third blind for $10, and I look down at pocket eights. I actually think this hand plays pretty good as a call, as well as a 3-bet sometimes. In this instance, I play it pretty passively and just make the call. We're going off to a flop that comes 3-4-5 rainbow. Really good board for us actually here. A little weird when the small blind actually leads out for $35. With the action getting to me after another call, I think this is a pretty easy spot for us to just flat here. We don't want to overplay our hand. We want to invite the action. I think it's pretty obvious we're against at least one person with a straight draw and maybe some kind of middling pair as well. We're going off to a turn card 4 ways that comes the 5 of spades. All right, this is not the worst card in the world, and especially not when the 2 blinds check it over to me. I bet $120. It ends up folding to the small blind, who ends up making the call. The other player makes a fold, and we're going heads up to a river card. That is probably my least favorite card in the deck as it comes to deuce of clubs. Both the 6 for a straight gets there, and the ace for a straight gets there. So with the action on my opponent, he actually decides to lead out for $240. Again, this is a friend of the vlog, so if I was going to lose in a pretty annoying spot, I'm happy it's to a friend of the vlog. I think about it for quite some time. I go deep into the tank, but at the end of the day, I think I'm pretty happy and going to sleep well at night, whether I see this hand or not. I end up making the fold here, and my opponent is kind enough to show me he had ace 6 of hearts. So he has the super wheel, as I joked around and said. He had both sides of the wheel from the ace all the way to the 6, which is pretty hard to do. And he's going to take that pot down. Let's go over the last hand of the session. In the final hand of our pretty rapid fire session, we have a pretty fun one. Early position limps. Again, we're looking to capitalize in this instance. Anytime we look down at a Broadway holding, it's a pretty mandatory raise. I make it $50 to isolate here. with king 10 offsuit. With the action going back to him, he makes a call. We're going off to a flop that comes ace 6 deuce with 2 spades and a club. The action checked over to me. I think a down bet is fine. This is just a board that I'm crushing. Pretty dry. There is a flusher out there, but again, pretty boring. I make it $45 to go. My opponent makes a call. We're going off to a turn card that comes a queen of diamonds. Aha! At this point, we pick up a gut shot straight draw, which is awesome. We do have a way of making the nuts here. So let's put some pressure on. When we pick up equity, we want to bet. So in this bluffing situation, I bet it $100 to go. My opponent pretty quickly makes the fold after a little bit of thinking, actually, to be fair to him. And we take that pot down with king high. And in reviewing the video footage, which is, again, right after the hand, I realized that I was actually bluffing with probably the best hand, which was king queen. I didn't realize I had king queen. I didn't realize I turned a pair. I would have probably just checked. But it worked out in our favor, I guess. Whether he folded an ace, I think that's a pretty easy no. There's no way in hell he did. But, you know, maybe we would have got called by worse. Either way, that's going to bring today's session to an end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this shorter video. I'm trying to kind of condense the breakdowns and only really give you guys the juice when I think there is. Like specifically that live tail hand, I think that was pretty fun. Getting the table audio was pretty good, and some of the other hands as well. I cannot thank you guys enough for the consistent support on these videos. It's been unbelievable. And I want to sit here and thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for getting me to 20,000 subscribers. It almost feels stupid to say getting me. I think it's definitely a we thing. The C2B familia is a real thing. I wouldn't be at the position I was at if it wasn't for things working in my favor. And more importantly, you guys going out of your way to consistently support me. So if you guys haven't already, make sure to click the like button, comment down below when you guys maybe watched your first ever episode of the C2B. Otherwise, just throw it over to me in person, as I sure as hell have some more to talk about there.
Okay, easy, quick session today. Played, I think, 3 hours like we talked about beforehand. And I'm happy to report, I think we played pretty decent. Got put in a couple little tough spots, and I think I was just being responsible with my stack and not going crazy. The one thing I will say is that we played quite a bit of bomb pots, and I think we lost every single one except for one. We easily played like 15 bomb pots, which is $25 each, which is not good, because if you're not winning those, then that's $25 deleted every single hand. And I want to pose this question to you guys. How do you guys feel about the bomb pot? I'm kind of 50-50. I can see how it entices some of the action players to join the game, which is why this game is so popular, I guess. It's the most popular 5-10 or whatever the hell you want to call it, 5-5-10, I guess, technically here in California. But I can see how it just slows down the game significantly. I understand if you're doing it, I don't know, every dealer change or every, I don't know, 20-30 minutes, but doing it every time a new player comes, every time somebody stands up, you guys know the whole spiel. It's just really often, and it can really slow the game down. Either way, numbers to report. We were into the 5-5 game at the very beginning for 1,000, and we cashed out for 1025. We only played that for like 30 minutes, and we actually got 2 or 3 pretty decent hands in there. The second session, we were in for 1025, and we cashed out 1760 exactly. 10, what the hell? 1760 exactly. So a little bit up stuck. I think at the highest point we were in like 21 or 2200. But as you guys may understand, unfortunately, due to the simple fact that we just did not do well in the bomb pots, just $25 deleted off the face of the earth like every single time. And one guy won all of them. It was pretty funny. And massive shout out to a couple of the gentlemen that we met in today's game, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully I don't mess it up. I think Joe and Tyler were the 2 gentlemen that had said hello and we met today. The table was wonderful. The game wasn't even like all that great. I think we just played decent and got in a cooler situation for stacks, and we won. And yeah, not a whole much more to report besides that. I mean, I think that's what's going to happen when you just play like regular poker and you don't get caught off with your, you know, hand in the cookie jar with 10-5 suited. So that's going to do it for me today. I can't thank you guys enough. Like I said, let me know what you guys think about bomb pots. I'd like to hear your thoughts, the pros and the cons. Let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a lovely day. Stay happy, stay healthy. More importantly, we're going to go to the tables, y'all. Deuces.